Now let's talk about a special clinical situation which is called as intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy. Now this situation is sometimes simply called as obstetric cholestasis. Okay, it was also previously called as icterus gravidarum, right? But jaundice is not the main symptom. That's why I want you to remember the name intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy, obstetric cholestasis. Jaundice is not the main symptom. The main symptom is itching, generalized pruritus, itching all over the body. You see, normally in pregnancy, women can complain of itching all over the abdomen, itching over the breast. That happens because of stretching of the skin. But if there is itching all over the body, if there is itching of the forearms and legs, if there is itching involving the palms and the soles, that is not okay. That could be obstetric cholestasis. Jaundice is rare. Jaundice happens only in about 10% cases. And if at all it happens, it is mild, right? The bilirubin levels are rarely going to go beyond 5 milligram per deciliter. Now, this condition is more common in the late pregnancy. Okay, it happens usually in the 3rd trimester. Remember that important point also. And then it is also more commonly seen in multifetal pregnancy. So the incidence or the chances of having obstetric cholestasis are more in multifetal pregnancy. There is some genetic predisposition also with this condition. Now, why does it happen? Now, this cholestasis that happens is because of estrogen in pregnancy, and not all pregnant women have it. So there is a genetic predisposition, and it is because of the estrogen, high amounts of estrogen, that cholestasis results. Now, when we talk about the genetic predisposition, a lot of studies are being conducted, and yes, one gene that has been studied is a mutation in the ABCB4 gene. So this is an important pointer for your MCQs, okay? ABCB4 gene. Now, this gene encodes for an MDR3 protein, and these are actually bile transport proteins, okay? So it is associated with progressive familial intrahepatic cholestasis. So they are studying this very same gene, and since it is associated with bile transport genes, you see, mutation in these genes can lead to increased predisposition towards having obstetric cholestasis, right? Now, the pathogenesis is that the bile salts, right, they accumulate in the body, right? Because of cholestasis, there is accumulation of the bile salts, right? Now, these bile salts, they also accumulate underneath the skin, and that is the reason for the constant and severe type of itching, right? Now, there is elevated serum bile acids, okay? There is also, because of cholestasis, right? Cholestasis, the term itself means dilatation of biliary radicals. That is what is cholestasis, okay? The slowing, the stasis of the bile, that is cholestasis. So increased serum bile acids. Because of cholestasis, there is increased serum bilirubins, and there is increase. Now, this serum bilirubin that is increased, it is not often that jaundice is going to happen. Jaundice is mild, but this is going to be conjugated. But one thing to remember, this is going to be the conjugated form of bilirubin, okay, because of cholestasis. Then there is going to be increased in liver enzymes, AST and ALT, and increase in alkaline phosphatase levels also. The key important point to remember here is that this increase in AST and ALT, this rarely exceeds 250 international units per liter. Remember that also. Okay, so the liver enzymes are raised, but they're always raised in the range of 150 to 250. They're not going raised, they rarely exceed beyond this level. Okay, now what is the clinical presentation going to be? The woman is going to be in her third trimester usually, right, with complaint of generalized pruritus involving the palms and the soles. No constitutional symptoms. She may have mild jaundice, right? But even if she has mild jaundice, she will not have fever, nausea, vomiting, other things that happen with jaundice or with some gastrointestinal problems. So she will not have any constitutional symptoms. Rash is also not there, and she has itching, yes. So there can be, because of itching, she can have excoriations over the skin because she has itched so much. But there's generally not a rash, right? Now, the other important thing is that yes, in 10% cases, she may have jaundice. She will have elevated liver enzymes, right? And the diagnosis can also be confirmed by checking for the raised serum bile acid level. So this is going to be an MCQ for you people in your exams. How are you going to confirm the diagnosis? Raised serum bile acids. Okay. Now, please remember that this is not an infective condition. No constitutional symptoms. There is cholestasis, agreed, but there is no liver necrosis happening. There is no liver inflammation happening. So remember this very, very important point. Yes, there is cholestasis that is happening in the liver. Okay, there is no infection, there is no inflammation, there is no necrosis of the liver. So this condition is going to improve or resolve, this cholestasis, once the pregnancy is over. So cholestasis resolves after pregnancy. But it is often recurring in subsequent pregnancy. Very, very important point. But recurrence is very common, almost definite chance of recurrence in subsequent pregnancy. And if this woman who has had a cholestasis or intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy once, if at any point in time later on in life she is going to have oral contraceptive pills, combined oral contraceptive pills, she can have the same cholestasis again. So recurrence in next pregnancy and with use of oral contraceptive pills. Remember this important highlighted point also, right? So as far as the clinical management goes, we know that the condition is going to spontaneously improve after pregnancy is over, right? So meanwhile, we have to provide symptomatic treatment. One thing is that now symptomatic treatment, like for itching, can be given by antihistaminics for the itching. We can also give the topical ointments, emollients to keep the skin moist, right? You can do that, all right? And the drug of choice, very, very important. The drug of choice, if they ask you one direct question, the drug of choice is given to decrease the serum bile acid levels in circulation, right? And for that, the drug of choice is ursodeoxycholic acid. Very, very important. This is a bile salt chelating agent. Okay, so what it does is basically this ursodeoxycholic acid is, a more water soluble, you see, again, bile salt compound only, right? So it is a bile salt chelating agent. How so? Because it is going to make the bile salts which are in circulation become more soluble in water and therefore excreted in the urine. That is how they work as a bile salt chelating agent. So remember this one word here. So it helps in reducing the bile acids levels in circulation. But why should we do that? What is the need? What is the need to do this? The need is because these bile acids, elevated bile acids, can cause problems for the fetus, can cause complications in the fetus. These by excess bile salts in circulation, bile acids in circulations, they can cross the placenta and directly cause cardiotoxicity in the fetus, can be directly toxic to the fetus. Let us put it at that, right? Now there is another agent which was again a bile salt chelating agent which was used earlier, but it is not drug of choice. We hardly ever use it. Cholestyramine. Cholestyramine was used earlier, but for the same purpose, but it is not used now because it will lead to decreased absorption. It is a drug taken orally. Both these drugs are taken orally. So if you take it orally, this cholestyramine, it interferes with the absorption of fat soluble vitamins also. That is not what we need, right? So this was used earlier. It's no longer used for this purpose. Drug of choice is cholestyramine. So let's talk about the complications of obstetric cholestasis. What if we don't treat this condition? What if we don't give the ursodeoxycholic acid and let the bile acids go very, very high? Now the risks are preterm birth and fetal distress, even sudden stillbirth at the time of term, and increased chances of having meconium stained liquor as and when the woman goes into labor with obstetric cholestasis. So this is definitely a high risk pregnancy, but high risk for the fetus. Okay, the mother is not at risk of having liver dysfunction or liver failure or anything of that sort. Okay, so the condition is more problematic for the mother, for the fetus. So that is why some people, and it is recommended, yes, that with obstetric cholestasis, we should go for induction of labor. We should not at least allow these pregnancies to go post-dated. Induction of labor is done anytime between 37 to 38 weeks. Okay, so that is also preferred to be done. So this is about obstetric cholestasis.